Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. I always appreciate the trustees. Quite a few trustees still listen to the episodes, and we're going to, always appreciate them and appreciate everybody that is new to the platform. This is Trust Christian in the vault. Own nothing, control everything. Definitely going to be going over a great episode here today. This is the Vault episode 349. Is Trustee Training worth it? Definitely going to really make it a point to go over some things in the Trustee Training program that we have. You can feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, you can reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Feel free to reach out to the Vault. Whether you want to go through trustee training, consultations, anything of that nature. This is not financial advice, so not intended to give that, but we definitely can talk about things that we have come through with the trustee training, people that come through in trustee training, people that inquire about the trustee training. Necessarily not necessarily why it's worth it, but is it worth it? Is trustee training worth it? So we're going to talk about that today. So this is episode 349. Is trustee training worth it? And so somebody could inquire. We've had people not necessarily inquire. Maybe 'cause usually people come through, they're already in at the level of consultations and want to move forward in the training. So when you go through the training, a lot of times what you experience is that a lot of people, and we're going to talk about this in the respect of, there's really two types of people. It's accredited investors and unaccredited investors. So when it comes to the accredited investors that are making over $250,000 a year, we talk about someone that's not making a quarter. We could talk about people that are non-accredited investors and things of that nature. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. So we have here a situation where you got accredited investors, unaccredited investors, and so we're going to talk about the variations of these different type of people, specifically in trusteeship. When we talk about it in trusteeship, we have to think about what distinguishes these two different types of families, whether they're informed or uninformed. We're talking about it not just from a trustee perspective, but more from a monetary perspective. Initially, coming into the training, are they in this position? Are they not in this position? Um, of course, you see different statistics all the way through, whether it's marital, whether it is family oriented, where multiple families or people are working together, or even if it's just one individual doing it by themselves. You say, oh, the statistics are against them. Well, the statistics aren't necessarily against any particular group. You just point out statistics of what is most likely happening, whether you're accredited or unaccredited, and depending on your marital status and things of that nature, family status, things of that nature, in trusteeship, you all can see that. So when we talk about is trustee training worth it, seeing so many families come through unaccredited versus accredited, there's a major difference in the meetings. When you look at someone that's making over $250,000, we'll start there because they're not hard to highlight. They're easy, very short, very brief, to the point people. They focus on deadlines. They focus on time frames. When we've sat down with these families, and had trustee training with these families, when we're talking about the families that are making over $250,000 for sure, these families have had their accountants at the meeting, lawyers at the meeting, things of that nature. When we have had these type of first engagements or engagements in general. So when we talk about trustee training with the accredited investor, or we meet with their lawyer, we meet with their accountant, or we meet with them and their family, you know, these are the statistics are going to start racking up in favor of these people. They've been able to put together some type of means financially to where they can demand to be in a training. They have to demand it. Why? Because they know that they need additional protection. They know that they are looking to maybe possibly go private. And so that's what these individuals do, or these families do. And so when you see that, uh, you see that they actually have more of a demand and more of a reason because they were in a different bracket. And these people are making quite a bit of capital. That if it was even a hit for a 30% hit or 40% hit, we can see that that can change the dynamic of how their portfolio will look as opposed to somebody that's just making 60, somebody that's just making 80. When you start looking at 80, you're almost looking at half. You got to start looking at that. So, in trustee training, when we talk about the unaccredited investors, these are people that have not been able to possibly become independently financially with some type of business. Usually, in an accredited investor status, you get people that are more families. They're in businesses. They have multiple businesses, or they may have a business that's really successful. Obviously, if it's making over $250,000 net for them, to be clearing that. And so, uh, when we talk about it now from the perspective of the unaccredited investor, did they are they working a job? What are some of the food piles of working a job and wanting to go private? What are some of the food piles of wanting to be a trustee and things of that nature? What are some of the negatives? What are some of the downsides of saying, well, we want to be in this environment, but we're not capitalized properly? And that's what you usually hear in this side or this sector. You hear a lot of people that are senior in our space say, well, if you're not carrying a certain amount of capital, you don't need to be in trustee training. Well, in all actuality, trustee training is for people to learn to be trustees, not because of the capital, but because of trustee training. And that's the distinguishment in our program at the vault, as opposed to people just saying, hey, here's a trust or whatever. You get the training because the training is the most important aspect of what we're talking about here. Even when you talk about having your lawyers and your accountants in a room, this is important because, or if your partners, your family in the room, is because it's an educational session. It's focused on training. People say, well, is the training worth it? Is the trustee training worth it for non-accredited investors then? Well, it is worth it for these individuals or families because they're able to move in the correct position at that point. Once they are in the correct position, then they're able to move in a position that states that they're able to be in these spaces that they say they want to be in. Or I want to be in a high net worth investor environment. Things of that nature. High net worth investor environment is literally making over $250,000 a year. You want to be in the same environment that they call an accredited investor, somebody that's making a certain amount of money every single year, and somebody that is they've done it consistently and they're able to manage assets. These are things that uh, when you say, well, what's the difference? We sat next to someone recently and they said, I didn't know that there was a divide on financial information if you don't make a certain amount of money. That is correct. If you don't make a certain amount of money, then you're not going to get, you're not going to be able to make, you're not going to be able to get into certain type of investments. Bottom line, just because you don't make a certain amount of money. So we know that so many people in the states are like, oh man, I don't want to be taxed out of the money. That's why trustees training is worth it. Cause they're like, oh, how am I ever going to do this if I know half of it's going to go leave my hands right out the rip? Appreciate Alabama for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Alabama for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you're listening live, listening to replay from. Always appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in live to the Vault or listening to replay 349. Is trustee training worth it? Some of the things that we see with so many, unaccredited investors is they don't know who to listen to properly. They haven't been able to distinguish. Uh, they need the education because they're not able to distinguish good investors from bad investors. Um, they have so many different issues going through the ranks, whereas accredited investors have kind of hashed out quite a bit of personality issues. They've been able to push forward through tough moments in business when capital may or may not been going through the company. To make $250,000 a year means you're making at least $10,000 plus a month, so net income to the company. But we could go and always increase that. when you're talking about accredited investor status, or even higher. So when you start talking in that manner of accredited investor going higher and things of that nature, they've hashed out quite a bit of the small details of silly thought process when it comes to habits and things like that. You'll always hear, or you do hear a lot of these people say, "Oh, I read, certain books and things of that nature." So many people feel like they need to have like this huge reading diet and things of that nature. But you do see people in the category of 250 and up say that they're reading manuals, books, studying, things of that nature. Whereas people that are unaccredited, they don't really say that. They're not in that position to say, oh, we're reading books. They feel like their life is in a frenzy. They don't feel like they're in control of their life, and possibly because of where they're. Possibly because of what they do, they're working a job once again, so they may not be in control of capital coming in and out of their life and things of that nature. So you hear a lot of resistance and pushback of why it's just really just excuses. Remember, the people in the accredited investor have a reason to do it because it's a need. They know, okay, I'm paying this, or I'm expending capital doing this, that, and the third. Whereas then when you get unaccredited investors, they're not expending that level of capital. They're under a $250,000 mark. They're let's just say they're under a six-figure mark. This is where you see the fall off. This is how you see it when it comes to net capital coming into the household. Net at capital, not gross. We're not sitting here talking about no gross. Gross is before expenses. So what are we talking about? We don't talk about gross. We talk about net. And when we talk about net right now, how many people are able to take additional net and invest in their education? Or are we in a society where people are saying, oh man, let me go ahead and get this free student write-off loan, student forgiveness things of that nature. And now we see why the society is the way it is when it comes to valuing a private education. Why would they value a private education? They don't need to value a private education. They know they didn't make it financially on the public side. So what difference would it make on them being doing it on the private side? They don't have a good financial education on the public side. So how they gonna have a good private education? That means they have to invest. Well, they're not used to investing money on the public side, the unaccredited investor side. They're used to spending money. That's what they're used to doing. They think college is a joke because they don't want to pay back the loan. Oh man, it was a waste. You know how many people with degrees say this? But oh no, we're not going to say that. We're not going to put them in that position. We're not going to not invest in our education. And that's what accredited investors do. They invest in their education. They invest in information. They're looking to acquire the most information, the best information actually. That's what makes you a great trustee. They know that. That's why they're in trustee training because they get that. There's something I don't know in business. Right. There's something you don't know. Appreciate Tulsa, Oklahoma for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Tulsa, Oklahoma for tuning in live, listening to replay. Is trustee training worth it? The training has been worth it for the people that have taken advantage of it. The people that have gotten the information and the education that they needed to move on and continue to be independent. Not be dependent on somebody's information that they're passing along. They've been trained into knowing how to seek out and get the right information. Specifically when we talk about trusteeship, the right relationships. The training is like your family passing along the information to you. That's really how the model is set up. It has more of a family feel where it's focused on families, making sure that they have successors because that's the most important thing. The trustee training is to always set up for the benefit of the beneficiary. Well, sure, you're doing a lot of things as a trustee to benefit the beneficiary, but one of them you got to do for sure is make sure you have a successor. But oh no, no. How many people are doing that? How many people are able to train people like that efficiently and effectively? How do you do that efficiently and effectively? You have to train them. You have to get them into some type of training program. And see, this is where you see the fall off between families or generations, which is one family says, guess what? We actually are going to invest in our education and study, and the next family doesn't. And that's the difference. Appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listen to replay. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listen to replay. Is the trustee training worth it? It was always worth it because it's about going from the public to the private. It sounds cliche like, oh, is it that simple? It's that simple. And what about generations? Everybody want to talk about generational wealth. How you going to pass along generational money if you're not in the right position? How you going to pass along the money you're not in the right position? They thought they was slick, right? That's called the unaccredited investor. They didn't want to get the information to do it the right way. They wanted to just keep making money. And that's what they do. They keep making their 60, they 80, they $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year. We've seen people make more than that and they still don't know certain things. So when we talk about the educational gap and investing in your private education, that's what we're talking about. That's the difference. That's how you get rid of that educational gap, is by investing in your education. But oh no, no. Who's supposed to invest in the trustee's education? Who's supposed to invest in your education as the trustee? The trust of the family, right? Right. But did they have one set up? Do you have one? Is your family in the right position? Where you doing it from that position? Trustee position? And that's the difference. That's what we see. So when we see accredited investors say, oh, we need to be in trustee position, where the unaccredited investor may say, well, why would I be in a trustee position when I'm not a millionaire? That's the same thing that the people at the banks are telling you. That's the same thing they telling you in many different financial realms where they got these security exchange laws and things of that nature in place. Oh, you can't tell people that don't make a certain amount of money about these things. Right. You hear what we said? If you don't make a certain amount of money, you don't know about these things. That's the laws they got in place. So you think you're doing well by, oh man, if I don't make that type of money, I ain't going to have to get it taken away from me because I don't know what I need to know. Okay, that's fair. And that's how it goes. But because you're not going to make a certain amount of money, quote unquote, become an accredited investor, you're going to be locked out of financial information, financial investments. We talk about private placements over at the vault. And then people don't even understand the impact or power of a private placement. That's crazy that they don't understand it because, once again, you have to have a certain amount of money to be allowed to be able to do these type of things. And that's the part that's like mind blowing to people. Oh man, I know I don't have access to the greatest amount of financial information. So if you don't, what are you doing to change that? You have to change that, correct? Or is it going to be one of those things that, oh man, it is what it is. I'm locked out of that. Are you investing in going to these different conferences? There's many different conferences that aren't always high net worth investor. But are you going to are you going to the accredited investor events? Oh man, well I'm not making that type of money. Hey, it might not, but if you don't plan on it, you're not going to be there. Why not go and check it out? Why not go and be a part of the American Bankers Association, or where they have the lawyers come in the room and sit there and you can see them having conversations about different things going on in the marketplace, whether it's public laws changing or banking laws changing and things of that nature. This is where we are in the world. Are you investing in your education? Oh man, I thought I was going to be spending money because I was just going to be coming out of pocket if I didn't take out a loan. It's an investment in yourself, in the betterment of the community, so you can have a proper vocation. And trustee is a vocation. Why is the training worth it? Or is the training worth it? Of course it is. Because you got to be trained to be a trustee. This isn't something you just wake up and do. It's not a job. It's not something you just get trained in one thing one time and all you got to do is keep sweeping floors. Appreciate Waco, Texas for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Waco, Texas, for tuning in live, listening to replay. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. You don't take off time from your family estate. The family estate is taking care of you, so why wouldn't you take care of it? But you have to train people into this lifestyle. This is not something that you just come into and say, "Oh, I knew how to do it already." Because if you knew how to do it already, you would have did it already. Does somebody's skill set cater towards stewardship or training? Sure, it does. It does. But the training is knowing the full gambit of what's involved in trusteeship. And we know that we provide it at the vault. We provide a trustee training program that's very comprehensive in not just information, but relationships. In the training, uh, you have to know who to deal with and who not to deal with. That's the training. It's a lot of people out here, they don't know who to deal with or who not to deal with. It's the internet. It's the internet gurus years now. These are the first people on the internet, you know, going through and getting it done, getting capital out of the internet. And so when you talk about trusteeship, everybody say they're going private, but how many people talking that trustee lingo? How many people are talking being a trustee, living in the capacity of a trustee? That's the difference. Are people living in that capacity? Are they talking in that capacity? Because when you're talking and you're living in that capacity, you're in certain environments at that point. There are specific people that you're dealing with. There are other people in the future that you're going to be dealing with because you're talking about being a trustee of an estate or a trust or something. You're having to exude a high level of discernment when it comes to decision making, uh, because the truth is yes, the decisions fall on you, whether they're good or they're bad, because you're the trustee. And so sometimes people say, "Oh man, does that mean I gotta fix things on my own?" No, but at the same time, would you fix them on your own? So as a trustee, you'll fix whatever's going to go on as a trustee that applies to you as a trustee. You're going to make sure it's right. So is a trustee training worth it? For sure. It's something to help somebody continue their education. For somebody to get in a different environment. What's really going on over there? Because at the end of the day, there's things going on right now in the private. And it's so crazy to know that so many people in the private aren't going to share with you what's going on. Is a trustee training worth it? Yes, because it gives you the things that if you don't get the private information, you don't have it. It sounds so simple. Well, what is that supposed to mean in more than obviously simplistic terms? It's more than the information. It's more than the education. It's the relationships. It's being able to have the tools. It's being able to have the systems. Now you got the system in place because they got a public school system just like they got a private school system. That's the trustee training system. They're the ones that go into the politics because they're ministers. They know this. They train to go and be a trustee of a group of people or a state. We're talking about trustee training today, and is trustee training worth it? Time and time again, so many families have gone through, and at the end of the day, for the most part, most families get what they need. For the most part. And it is up to the family. The training is there, the information is there, the resources are there to become successful more than what they are. But then it comes to, are you going to put in the work as a family to work together, to come and have family meetings quite often as a family in trustee training for your family? Are you doing that together? How are we not all on the same page? Well, the unaccredited investors usually have those problems. The accredited investors, they don't have those problems like the unaccredited investors do. The numbers drop off drastically for those type of family issues. Usually an accredited investor has a family, whether y'all want to know it or not. Most people that make over $250,000 a year consistently for the past 3 years plus, and or have done it 3 years in a row, for sure, they have families. These people have families. They have families sitting at the table. That's why it's so important to have a family. It's so you all can come together and do something together instead of it just being one person by themselves. Oh, I'm trying to get the information. Sure, we see that too. We see quite a few accredited that have, uh, they're by themselves, but that's rare. It's not too many nowadays. Nowadays, you see in a high net worth investor environment, or even in the accredited investor environment, uh, you see a lot of families more than anything. You'll see a family investor, you'll see a family manager, things of that nature. But they're always speaking about family. So when we see the opposite, we see the opposite. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you listen to live, listen to replay from. Feel free to like the episode, subscribe to the episode so I can get all the notifications on when we go live. Feel free to do that. Definitely feel free to hit the notifications, and as well, hit the like button for sure. I'll let people know, it's definitely a liked episode, because there's so many people that listen to or have gone through the trustee training and they still listen to the episodes. So many people. And we know they do because they'll contact us or they'll write something on the episode comments, and we know that. So what it comes down to is, are you going to continue your education far along after you've gone through the training? Sending us episodes, asking for a request. Somebody asks, is trustee training worth it? And then when you all look in the comments and you see what people are saying, why they're doing it or why they aren't doing it, now you see that, are these people accredited? Are they unaccredited? Things of that nature. The accredited investors are going to make sure they're in the right position. That's why they're called an accredited investor. That's why they have access to different type of investments now, because they've earned their keep. Is trustee training worth it? Yeah, because they earn their keep. What about the people that haven't? We're going to see if they come through and make it happen, because that's what it's all about. Is making it happen. That's what it's all about. And are we going to see it happen with unaccredited investors over the next few years? Or are we going to see it just continue to be a great divide between the haves and the have-nots? Think about it. If you don't have access to certain type of financial information because you don't make a certain amount of money, how do you think you're living well? How do you think you're living well? Is this the destructive nature of financial information or financial literacy? No one wants to speak on the fact that if you don't make a certain amount of money, you don't have access to a certain type of financial information. Is that wrong to say? It's not wrong. We see it even with the bank when the bank says your money's insured to a certain amount. They're giving you to let you know, hey, look, we got to have protections in place for people that are not going to earn their keep, that are not going to work to be in a position to make in the $250,000 that separates them from the rest of the people that they don't have information and access to. That's the difference. So if you make $250,000 a year, you automatically get access to different information, financial investments. Is that right? You're willing to take that risk for that $10,000 investment, for that 15, 20, $30,000, $100,000 investment. If you don't make $100,000, that could be your life savings, but you know, even still, that's not the end of the world. A person that works makes a 60, 80, $100,000 a year might be able to say that. Save, $100,000 in 10 years. And granted, they don't want those people to go backwards in the marketplace. The powers that be, because actually it's the government. The government has these laws in place in the states that says, hey, we don't want you to make this person lose their life savings all in one swap. Well, that means you got to make a certain amount of money, and who knows how you're gonna do it. Now, are we talking about clearing 250 gross? Definitely, you definitely got to clear 250 in gross, and that's what it's about. It's clearing 250 in gross too as well. So they've kind of changed the rules. You all can look up the accredited investor definition and find out. Uh, Definitely, I'll just get a chance to do that. You want to get a chance to, uh, you know, do what you got to do there. So, is trustee training worth it? And somebody just asked a question in the chat uh, about crypto, and it's so funny just because we're going to this event this week, and it's a crypto conference. And what's so funny is that we're going there to meet lawyers. We're going there to meet the hedge funds that are saying that they are actually investing in this crypto stuff. Like, how did you get funded? Did you get funded by another angel or another VC or what? Like, how are these funds able to raise this type of money and do something with it? And when we look at the money, there's probably more money actually that's just been raised than actually been invested in the crypto stuff. So it'll be really good to get some type of like feedback. We'll share the event afterwards that we're at and that we went to, and share what we got out of it or whatever. So it's an event coming up this weekend actually. We'll see how that goes. It'll be pretty good to kind of go over that. So then we get down to appreciate Melrose Bronx for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Melrose Bronx for tuning in live, listening to replay. Alrighty, is trustee training worth it? For the ones that invest, they find out what that investment is or what they call an investment is. Outside of that, if you don't invest, you don't get to know what you're doing and what it's all about. That's what it's all about. It's about making sure you got the training and the consulting right there in front of you. We definitely do 8-hour sessions. We've done workshops with trustees for years, whether that's one-on-one trust workshops or we're talking about doing even a what is that? Doing a group workshop. We've done group workshops. We just did a workshop earlier this year. We actually got two this year done in 2021. So really happy and excited that we had two great trainings for some families, and each time they were packed out with the families and just continuously growing. The biggest thing is always just having the families be in the environment together to be able to, communicate on the same level with people that they will almost be able to say that they can trust. That's the most important thing, being able to communicate and deal with people that you can trust. So really excited to go forth with this. Going into the new year. It is November, going into 2022. So we're just going to continue growing with the trustee training. Is the trustee training worth it? It's worth it. It's always been worth it. It'll continue to be worth it just because the families are the most important thing. Obviously, they're getting served. You can look at the chat, see people in the chat and their families are happy with the training, and the training is worth it because it does what we talk about. What's so beautiful is you've never seen the vault break its code of privacy, non-disclosure. So when you see people come through, no one's exposing themselves. All the families are protected, and that's the most important thing. Is just making sure that the families are in the right position, because when you get families that can work together, they can work together. It's hard for people to work together when they're not trusting each other, and that's partially because they're not in trust. But when you are in that position and you can do that, you see the big difference. And so it's always been about building community and trusteeship in the private sector. And we'll continue to do that, whether it's with accredited or non-accredited investors, and obviously working with those accredited investors and looking to grow into that position of accredited investorship, get access to better information and things of that nature, and that's what it comes from. So look forward to hearing from you all, working with you all. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. If you're going through trustee training and consultation, feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Thanks for tuning in live, listen to replay. Peace and enjoy.